All right, let's be honest. Is there anyone out there who actually enjoys making cold calls? I mean, it can be kind of nerve-wracking, can it?
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a field where, like, your income depends on turning a cold lead into a hot prospect.
It really is the classic love-hate relationship for anyone in sales, right? And the thing is, we often just accept a pretty low success rate as, just how it is, part of the game.
Exactly. But what if there was a way to crack the code a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially nailing that opening line that actually gets you past the no and into a real conversation. So we decided to do a little deep dive into real estate coach Brandon Mulrenin's approach because he actually took a data-driven look at this whole thing.
Yeah, he tracked over 1,000 cold calls, which is impressive on its own. But he went beyond just, did I get a yes or no at the end, and really dug into which opening lines led to people actually engaging in a conversation.
And his research is super interesting, right? He's kind of challenging the traditional cold calling script by advocating for what he calls permission-based openers. I'll admit, when I first heard that, I was like, okay, what does that even mean?
It is a bit counterintuitive, I think,
Clear.
because instead of leading with, your pitch and everything, it's more about leading with empathy. It's acknowledging right up front that, hey, this is a cold call and you might not be super thrilled to be getting it, but in doing that, you're disarming them a bit and actually making space for a real conversation.
So, okay, I'm hooked. How does this actually play out in a real cold call? What are some of these, like, magic phrases that get people to actually stay on the line?
Well, Mulrenin actually shared the top 3 openers he discovered, and I think you'll see how they each tap into a slightly different psychological, trick almost, like a way of overcoming that initial, ugh, not another salesperson resistance.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so his third most effective opener, which had an 81.4% success rate, was, I didn't know if I should even call you, but would you hate me if I asked you something really quick?
That's kind of brilliant, actually. It almost reminds me of that, the Ben Franklin effect, where the idea is like if you ask someone for a small favor, they're more likely to do something bigger for you later.
Yes, exactly.
It's like by asking, would you hate me? You're kind of prompting them to be on your side.
Yeah, and it plays on our desire to be, helpful and agreeable. Plus, there's a little bit of humor in there, which you can never go wrong with when you're trying to break the ice.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, what about number 2?
Number 2, with an 84.9% success rate, was, listen, before you hang up, I was hoping to ask you something really quick. Would that be okay?
See, that one to me, it feels like you're acknowledging their right to hang up, but then you're also like making them curious at the same time.
Exactly. It's so smart because, again, just saying before you hang up, you're putting that thought in their head. But then immediately following it with a polite request for permission, like, would that be okay, shows respect.
And that's got to be key, right? Because nobody wants to feel like they're being bullied into a conversation.
Right. It's all about respecting their autonomy, but making them intrigued. And then, drum roll, please. His number 1 opener with a whopping 88.6% success rate was, look, you're going to hate me. I'm a realtor. Do you want to hang up, or will you give me 30 seconds to tell you why I called?
Okay, I got to admit, that's bold. I mean, he's really addressing the elephant in the room there.
He is, but it's that unexpected honesty that makes it work, I think. Plus, he's using humor and giving them a choice, even if it's a bit of a, do you want to hear me out or not kind of choice.
It's true. And giving people a sense of control, even in that small way, can make all the difference.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you run into what psychologists call psychological reactance. Basically, when we feel pressured, we tend to resist, even if it's something we might actually be interested in.
So these openers, they're all about like sidestepping that knee-jerk no and actually getting people to listen.
Exactly. It's like he's saying, I know you're busy. I know you probably get calls like this all the time. And just that little bit of empathy can go a long way.
It's funny how these subtle shifts in language can completely change the game.
It really is.
But words are only part of the equation, right?
Right.
It's like, as they say, delivery is everything.
Yeah.
You could have the best opening line in the world, but if it sounds like you're reading it off a cue card, it's not going to land right.
100%, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we've all been on the receiving end of those calls where the person's technically following a script, but you can just tell it's not genuine.
Oh, totally. You can practically hear the hesitation in their voice. Like,
Yeah.
it just makes you want to tune out. So for people who, maybe cold calling isn't their favorite thing, how do you find that balance between sounding natural and still using these openers effectively?
Well, like with anything, practice makes perfect. But I think it goes beyond just memorizing the words, You have to really internalize the message behind the opener.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, try thinking of it like you're having a conversation with a friend, not just trying to, make the sale or whatever.
That's a really good point, because even though these are, like, technically scripts, they're designed to sound conversational, not like some salesy pitch.
Right. Imagine how you'd ask a friend for a small favor, right? It's casual, it's respectful. You might even be a little self-deprecating, like in that first opener we talked about.
And the crazy thing is, Mulrenin actually has the data to back this up. He found that using these permission-based openers, he went from having like a 30% contact-to-conversation rate to 80%. That's insane.
It's huge. And think about it this way. Let's say your goal is to close one deal per quarter, right? And you're spending maybe 2 hours a day prospecting. Well, by just upping your opening line game, you could potentially be closing a deal every single month without adding any extra prospecting time.
That's the kind of tweak that could totally transform your business.
Absolutely.
It just goes to show how these tiny little shifts can make a massive difference in the long run.
It's all about the psychology behind it, right? Understanding how people's minds work and then using that knowledge to improve these interactions.
It's fascinating. Well, on that note, to all our listeners out there, as you're trying out these techniques, let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear what's working for you, what challenges you're facing. And remember, the best approach is always the one that feels authentic to you.
Couldn't agree more.
Good luck out there, everybody, and happy calling.